Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om. Shri Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om. Ram Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om. Shri 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 Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Hari Om to everybody.
Hari Om Swamiji.
Hari Om.
Namaskaram Swamiji.
Namaskar, namaskar.
Hari Om Swamiji. Hari Om Swamiji.
The first chapter of In Quest of God. Oh, 1 minute. All bindings are to be put on. In the first chapter of In Quest of God, we found how the dispassion towards the worldly things started mounting up in his bosom. So God willed that during his little bit earlier period, he was motivated to go through Srimad Bhagavad Geeta along with other books. But later on, Papa used to say that he found Srimad Bhagavad Geeta more closer to him. So we put 2 and 2 together. The first chapter, how the dispassion was motivating him to recede from the sense of possession and the relationship. So when we go through with that background, there are many slokas in Srimad Bhagavad Geeta which are helping us towards knowing the hollowness of life. In the passage of divinity, at one place, Papa himself expresses that the fetters are gawling. These are the words used. And the hollowness of life was becoming very, very clear. Fetters, that means bondages, are highly irritating, disturbing, When his vyavaharik problem has been solved, even then Papa was not at all content with that situation. He was becoming well aware of the transitory nature of the world, and that is why even in that period where somebody has come forward to take over his sick unit, they have cleared the liabilities, they have added some more looms. So from the all practical point of view, his problem has been solved. But still he was not at all content with that, or God did not make him content with that. At that time, during a discussion in Sitaram Rao's house, when so many were talking about so many things, suddenly Papa got up and said these words: the fetters are gawling. And later on in the same chapter, he mentions that when everybody tried to persuade him to make him know that he should not run away from his duties, responsibilities, he said Ramdas has started feeling the hollowness of life. So this prompted us. There could be many slokas, but in the 8th chapter, the 15th sloka, that stand out. He says, Mamupetya punarjanma dukkhalaya ashashvatam napnuvanti mahatmanam samsiddhim paramam gataha. Reaching the highest perfection and having attained me, The great souled ones are no more subject to rebirth, which is the home of pain, and it is ephemeral. Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. Mamupetya. When you attain me, Punarjanma, this rebirth ceases for you. What is this rebirth? Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. The home of pain and ephemeral. That is the nature of human life. So much sorrow along with some pleasures and comfort. Because we do not know anything higher, we think this is first class living. But when we know there is something higher, we understand that this is not first class at all. We are satisfied with what we are, we don't want to change it. In this human body, we get pleasure. In a pig body also, there is pleasure. Ask a pig, do you want to change your body? It will say, no, I am very fine here. Everybody is caught up in that particular attitude, not knowing that infinite freedom is awaiting us from the realization of the Atman behind the body. The word dukkhalayam does not mean that there is no joy. There is joy, there is pleasure. In fact, there has been a study on this subject in both East and West. Is life more pleasure or more sorrow? Lokamanya Balagangadhar Tilak, in his scholarly 2-volume book, Gita Rahasya, discusses this subject. People say, if you think the world is full of sorrow, you are a pessimist. The opposite is optimist. But if you know the truth of life, this is a very important word, no? There is no question of pessimism or optimism. It is just the truth about the nature of the world and of human life. Many people say that if you calculate pleasure and pain in society, pain and sorrow predominate and not joy or pleasure. Joy and pleasure are there, but what predominates is sorrow. A young man or woman cannot understand that after 70 or 80, when he or she looks back, he or she can ask that question, what was the nature of my life? Was it all joy or sorrow, or more of joy or more of sorrow? Thinkers have done it. So it is not pessimism or optimism. What is the truth about life? Just like yesterday we were recollecting the words of Mataji, you know. Our face is so beautiful, we can make it beautiful, presentable, but behind the nostrils, you know, behind the throat, filth is there, you know. If somebody points out, it is not a negative factor. What is being pointed out is the truth. So when we go back in retrospect, when we find suppose we start listing, which have given me joy, which have given me sorrow, each one will come to know which one overweighs. What was the nature of my life? Was it all joy or sorrow, or more of joy or more of sorrow? This truth is what you find mentioned by the Gita here in dukkhalayam ashashvatam. When you have this body, you have so many pressures. The whole world is pressing upon you. You are trying to resist it to be yourself. So joy comes, sorrow comes, suffering comes, tension comes, all sorts of problems come. All these put together is what we repeat in our society as samsara. Our samsara is tapatraya. Worldly life is made of threefold misery. That is the language. Every Hindu knows these words, samsara and tapatraya. I think in Guru Sthiti also it comes, about this tapatraya. Worldly life is made of threefold misery. Every Hindu knows these words. Everybody utters it. But the truth is, yes, there is a majority of suffering, less of pleasure and comfort and happiness. And yet, it is worth living. That also comes in our teaching. It is worth living because, as Vedanta puts it, through pleasure and pain, we can achieve our spiritual evolution. Sometimes pain will help you better than pleasure and spiritual evolution. That is a wonderful teaching. In Swami Vivekananda's lectures, you find this subject discussed. That the Hindu sages placed before men and women this great objective, that life's objective is not pleasure, is not pain, but spiritual knowledge. Gaining knowledge by squeezing pleasure and pain. Gaining spiritual knowledge by squeezing pleasure and pain. You try to get knowledge by discriminating, by thinking about it, by reflecting on it, then you get knowledge out of it, and very often pain gives you more knowledge than pleasure. That is human experience also. In this way, you go beyond pain and pleasure. Whether there is more pain or more pleasure is not the question. The human mind is set to a high purpose. It takes one beyond both pain and pleasure and then makes one realize the infinite Atman, the divine, which is beyond all these dualities of pain and pleasure. You go beyond them both, as Sri Krishna will say, these are all related to each other, pain and pleasure. You go beyond them both. These are all related to each other. If you have one, you must have the other also. Life cannot be all pleasure, there will be pain. Life cannot be all pain, there will also be pleasure. These are dualities. In the Gita's language, if you have one, you get the other also. Life cannot be... You can't expect only one to be with you. Heat and cold, for example, always go together. If you have heat, you will have cold also. Both opposites are there around us. And so Vedanta teaches all to take life as it is. Life is a combination of pleasure and pain. Whether one is more or the other is more is just a theoretical question. We are passing through life which involves both pleasure and pain. Don't get stuck up in either of them. That is the Vedantic teaching. Squeeze both of them and get knowledge out of them. Experience alone can give you knowledge. Without the experience of pain, you can't understand the world and sympathize with humanity. Unless you have starved a little, you can't understand the 300 millions of our people are half-starving all the time. You can't have sympathy, you can't have understanding. So utilize occasion of pain and pleasure to achieve knowledge and compassion. That's spiritual expansion of the human personality. That is the Vedantic teaching. Swami Vivekananda expresses this beautifully in the first chapter of this Karma Yoga. So, mam upetya punarjanmam, dukkhalayam ashashvatam, napnuvanti. Once you realize me, no more will you be in this uncertain world of pleasure and pain. In this world of birth and death, Mahatmanaha, such people are Mahatmas. Those whose self is more than what is contained in the body. Normally, when we use the word Mahatma, we hardly apply our mind how it is coined as Mahatma. Here Swami Ranganathananda puts it beautifully. Those whose self is more than what is contained in the body. That means identifying more than us, me to be. Those whose self is more than what is contained in the body, it has expanded and become one with all. Such a person is called Mahatma. God himself is declared to be a Mahatma in one of the Upanishads. This person also has achieved that infinite expansion of self-awareness. Samsiddhim paramam kataha. He or she has achieved supreme perfection in this very life. That is the language of the 15th verse. This sloka will definitely help us, because it is not that we become pessimist. We are running toward the fleeting joys, That will be arrested. We will not get depressed when we pass through pain or sorrows, because we know that is the world, that is the samsara. So Bappa must have been going through this intensely, because this 8th chapter, it is always connecting with the relationship, or the state of affairs of death and thereafter. Because here in 2 or 3 slokas, he clearly mentions about at the time of death. Kavim Puranam Anushasitaram Anoriniyam Sarvasya Dhadharam Achintya Rupam Aditya Prayanakale Manasa Achalena Bhakriya Yukdo Yoga Balena Jiva. So Prayanakale, at the time of leaving, again he says Antakalecha Mameva Smaran. That also he says. Antakalecha Mameva Smaran Bhuktva Kalevaram Yaprayadi Samadbhavam Yadi Nastatra Samshaya. And he who at the time of death, meditating on me alone, goes forth leaving the body, attains my being, there is no doubt about this. Antakale, at the time of death, the last moment is called Antakala. Thinking of me alone. Casting away one's body. The nature of death in India means the soul casting away the body. I am the soul, I am the self, I am not the body, I am in the body is my instrument. So death in India means the soul casting away its body. Very often a troublesome body, which is useless for the purpose of life. Therefore it is time to drop it away. That is the nature of death. Beyond certain age, we all feel it, We all pray for anayasa maranam, Because we have seen around us. Especially in ashram, we get, so many calls, so many letters, emails. Somebody has been admitted in the hospital, somebody is doing this chemotherapy, somebody is, had a heart attack, and somehow they seek blessings to get over. So as Ranganathan Swami says, only after 60 or 70 we realize this. When we draw the balance sheet of our life, what has happened to us? So many things, we made it as a target. We sacrificed so many things to achieve it. And then what happened? So many things we wanted to possess. We did possess. And then what happened? So many types of relationship we wanted to develop. We did develop. And then what happened? Finally, at 60 or 70, when God makes us to physically recede from all these activities and then make a stock taking, then only we realize. So, Mamupetya Punarjanmam Dukkhalaya Shashvatam, we will be able to understand it more clearly when we do this stock taking. So, I don't want any more, please. I know from Satsang that this body I have got because of my prarabdha karma. Karma sanchitam. I don't want any more. So how to get myself freed from the wrangle of birth and death? That is what is explained in this 8th chapter, Akshara Brahma. And then when God blesses us to impartially look at our own life and see the reality for ourselves, not that somebody said and we are convinced, we look at our own life and then finally what do we conclude? Suppose we conclude that everything is ashashvatam, it promised to give me joy. I attained it, but there was only a fleeting joy, not an everlasting joy. And the body is also subject to wear and tear. Even if the outer circumstances are favorable to us, the body will not stop decaying. So I don't want this dukkhalaya, which is asaj. So probably we are now putting it 2 and 2 together. When he said the fetters are gawling, or he said the hollowness of the life is becoming clearer and clearer to me, as mentioned in Passage to Divinity. Let us not think that when he was passing through the most stressful period, no. Because his brother Sanjeev Rao, when he heard these words, he made a mention to the eldest brother Anand Rao. He also said, snap the bonds. This word also he used, Papa. Snap the bonds. So then they were all a little upset. So they asked Sitaram, will he do that? Then Sitaram Rao said, no. He had passed through severest stressful. At that time it has not come. So how will it come now? Sanjeev Rao says, I did not argue, but I was convinced that what he meant has come from his own heart. So relatively all the outer circumstances are becoming favorable. But he was able to evaluate things, in a flashback. So the help rendered by the friend to come out of the mounting liabilities and the sick unit, which was the primary problem, everywhere, to be blunt, when there is no financial stability at home for the main wage earner, there will be disharmony. Because we have to face life. Every moment we have to meet the demands. So financial stability to a very great extent gives a cushioning. So when that is dwindling, naturally everything will be upset. But here we find that financial stability, instability has almost gone. But then Papa was able to watch, and clearly he could see that this is also a thing that will pass away after some time. It may come in a different way. No? The same suffering can come in a different form, that's all. So this dukkhalaya ashashvatam, this must have gone deep into his. And that was the instrumental cause for the decision he took on 27th December 1922.
Swamiji,
Ah.
what is it? Fetters of God. What is it? Something you are telling? Fetters of God.
Eh?
Fetters. What is it? Fetters of God. One word.
Fetters, chain, bondage.
Bondage of. Hello.
The fetters are galling, that is the word he used. It is irritating, it is frustrating. That language is, it shows, the hollowness of the life.
Hollowness of the life.
Ah. That was the word he used.
What is that word? Fetters. What is it?
What is the meaning? Fetters.
Fetters.
Fetters. F-E-T-T-E-R.
Fetters of. Oh, fetters of.
Fetters are galling, it's a rare word.
So, okay. Fetters.
Because in the second chapter, he also quotes from Bhagavad Geeta. Abandoning all duties, come to me alone for shelter, sorrow not, I will liberate thee from all sins. Ram had thus spoken out. At once Ramdas made up his mind to give up for the sake of Ram all that he till then hugged to his bosom as his own and leave the samsaric world. During this period, he was very simple in his dress, which consisted of a piece of cloth covering the upper part of the body and another wound round the lower part. So he wrote 2 letters, one to his wife, whom Ram had made him look upon for some time past as his sister, and another to a kind friend whom Ram had brought in touch with Ramdas for his deliverance from debts. The resolution was made. At 5 o'clock in the morning, he bade farewell to a world for which he had lost all attraction, and in which he could find nothing to call his own. The body, the mind, the soul, all were laid at the feet of Ram, that eternal being, full of love, full of mercy. So this 15th shloka in the 8th chapter, all of you might be having, kindly go through it. What we read out was from Swami Ranganathananda Maharaj's commentary. Because that alone gives a push. Otherwise we may keep compromising. Just like he said, the pig also enjoys. We are satisfied with what we are, we don't want to change. In this human body, we get pleasure. In a pig body also, there is pleasure. Everybody is caught up in that particular attitude, not knowing that infinite freedom is awaiting us from the realization of the Atman behind the body. And he has clearly mentioned when he said dukkhalayam, initially we may jump into the conclusion that it is the pessimistic. No, it's not pessimistic. He has portrayed the true characteristic of life. When we get a fruit, after a few days, suppose we forget to use it, it goes bad. The same fruit we will not touch. What a pleasurable thing it was to think about that sweet fruit. But when it got spoiled, after some time the decomposition starts, and we will develop an aversion toward the same one which we have kept it in our shelf or in our fridge. Slowly we are trying to understand. It is not anything wrong with the fruit. That is the nature. So anything that we aim at, so we are now trying. Spirituality is nothing but a search for that which is eternal. That which is transient, we have mastered many things. We have analyzed, we have drawn many conclusions, we have applied our intellect. So many things have gone. Secular science offers answers for everything. But it doesn't offer anything that is going to be eternal. When I get a disease, I take medicine, that's all. It doesn't guarantee that I will not get the disease again. Today I feel with this creature comfort I will become happy. After a month or two, I don't find, it's an ordinary thing in my life, in my house. At the time of buying and keeping it, just imagine. So this is something on which Papa did intend, because Chandrasekhar Rao also describes, when he was making a mention about this intent study, it was not a superficial study of these books. Even Yoga Vasishta, he makes a mention, which is the toughest book. There, how Lord Rama, when he was drawn to the Sabha, a big darbar, because suddenly he became introvert, he was not mixing with anybody. So everybody thought something had happened, so he was called. Dasharatha asked him to ask the others to bring him there, and this question was raised. And then Rama starts listing the transient nature of the world. So many pages, in English when we read. Swami Venkateshananda has translated it beautifully. You will not feel like keeping it, because it is not a theory. It is the facts that is arrayed before us. How transient everything is. So what is the use of running after this? So Rama asked, is there anything that is eternal? Papa was reading this not as a casual reading. He forgot the exact word he used. He said it was a deep, in-depth study. So that had its telling effect. We are trying to weave in everything to what had happened on 27th December. That is why it is taught to us. Yoga Vasishtha is imparted to know this, and how Vasishtha starts clarifying one by one through so many episodes. And every now and then Rama will again question. It was a deep study. He plainly asked, is there anything in the world which is eternal? According to me, everything is transient, ashashvatam. So God has been building up this in the minds of Papa by prompting him, motivating him to go through these books intently and then to dwell on it and to see his own life. 38 years he lived. There have been many ups and downs, probably more downs than ups, for no fault of his. And so he was convinced. So that is why we were prompted to go to this particular stanza. Mam upetya punarjanmam dukkhalayam ashashvatam napnuvanti mahatmanam samsiddhim paramam gataha. The word dukkhalayam does not mean there is no joy, there is pleasure. In fact, there has been a study on this subject. Lokamanya Gangadhara Tilak says, if you think the world is full of sorrow, you are a pessimist. People say, the opposite is optimist. But if you know the truth of life, there is no question of pessimism or optimism. When I bite the bitter gourd, if I complain it is bitter. If I bite the chilies and say it is spicy, that is the nature, So like that, life is full of these ups and downs. Today we are in up, tomorrow we are in down, again we are in up, again we are in down, 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 then up, up, up. And finally, when we are a little free from all these vadrations, when we take a stock taking, when we take a look at it, we find that all of them are coming and going. Nothing is staying there. That is why, that was one of the reasons why he asked for the Nirguna Niragara Tattva. Because the Saguna Rupa, he was also a great devotee of Lord Krishna. And Krishna's darshan he had. Then he was very clear, because he has done elaborate study on Srimad Bhagavad Geeta. He said, what you have told in the 11th chapter, you bless me with that vision. I don't want this vision. Because I am seeing it, in the Vishwarupa Darshan, I am there. God is there in a tangible, palpable form, not in a particular form. And when he accepted the entire creation as the form of God, he was free from these ups and downs and worry, because everything he knows. If there is when you go up the mountain, there is a downward also, upward incline, downward incline. Both are there, So you become aware of the nature. And this inquest of God gave him this all types of experience. Starvation was there, no? And feast was also there. Many places he was received with love, reverence, Many places he was ignored, mocked at. But nowhere we have read he lost his balance. No. Because he was able to see the nature, the world and the nature. It's a wonderful lesson for all of us. We accept the world and its nature. We don't add any prefix or suffix. It should be like this. It should be like that. The Ranganathan Swami, he has beautifully brought out that, here. He says that is the nature. If you know the truth of life, there is no question of pessimism or optimism. It is just the truth about the nature of the world and of human life. Many people say if you calculate pressure and pain in society, pain and sorrow predominate, not joy or pleasure. When you have this body, you have so many pressures. The whole world is pressing upon you. You are trying to resist it to be yours. So joy comes, sorrow comes, suffering comes, tension comes, all sorts of problems come. All these put together is what we repeat in our society as samsara. But the truth is, yet there is a majority of suffering, less of pleasure and comfort and happiness, but yet it is worth living. So we are not belittling the importance of... Yes?
In that book, In the Vision of God, Papa was actually felicitated at one day, and the same day they board the train, and where he is taking up, there is no place for him to sit. He is sitting in between where people walk, and people just, touch him with his feet, with his chappal and all. And Papa bears that also.
Correct. All sorts of experiences he was subjected to go through. And nowhere he grumbles or complains because he has accepted the nature of life. That is important. This is the clue he gives, When we repeat the 12th chapter sloga, samadukka, Adveshta sarvabhudanam maitra karuna evaja nirmamo nirahankara samadukka sugakshami, He is sama and dukkha and sugha. It is nice, but how do we understand? Now we understand. It is not that he maintained the balance with some other superhuman nature. He accepts it as the nature. So naturally he will not be upset. This is dukkhalayam ashashvatam. When we know that, we will not grumble or complain. And God has given us this life, which is dukkhalayam ashashvatam, so that we will be able to realize Him also. Over so many births, we have accumulated lot of prarabdha karma. And because of that karma sanchidam, we got this body. And we know what had happened to our life, right from the date of birth, right from the day we started knowing about our life, till this moment. So now, by taking up Papa's inquest of God, Papa keeps on telling us we are not aware of it. He says we have to aim at the eternal, not at the ephemeral. We were not able to understand it. But he is now making it clearer and clearer. Because we have to understand the nature of the world to which we are attached. And we expect it to be always full of pleasure, which will never happen. And it is ashashvatam. So then we should be aiming at a stage where we are free from these wrangles. Though not in this birth, in next birth we can try. Why not we try in this own birth? That also a question is there. So that is and we have seen a God-realized saint was able to feel that he could remain unaffected by the pleasure and pain. So now we are praying to him, either you make us to realize your presence within us so that we will not start craving for anything that is ephemeral. If you think our equipment is not ready, at least you pave the way or the facilitate us in the next birth, where we are born in a conducive atmosphere where we develop this and we try to realize this. From the life of our spiritual preceptor Papa, we have seen that he was able to lead a blissful life even when he was in the body, because he was able to free himself from the notions or concepts about a pressure-giving life. He was free from that. There will be pressure, there will be pain. No? He was able to understand the nature of it. So I kindly bless us either with that. But if you think our equipment, we have not done sufficient training, if our equipments are not capable of absorbing these themes, kindly tutor, educate us, train us, lead us, guide us. And if not in the next birth itself, we should be able to realize this truth. So that is the essence of this particular chapter. Reaching the highest perfection and having attained me, the great souled one Mahatmas are no more subject to rebirth in the world, which is the home of pain, and it is ephemeral. Worldly life is made of the threefold misery. In Vivekananda's lectures, you find this subject discussed. We try to get knowledge by discriminating, by thinking about it, reflecting on it. Then you get knowledge out of it. And very often pain gives you more knowledge than pleasure. This is human experience also. In this way, we go beyond pain and pleasure. Whether there is more pain or more pleasure is not the question. The human mind is set to a high purpose. It takes one beyond both pain and pleasure and then makes one realize the infinite Atma. The divine, which is beyond all these dualities of pain and pleasure. You go beyond them both, as Sri Krishna will say. These are all related to each other, pain and pleasure. If you have one, you must have the other also. Life cannot be all pleasure, there will be pain. Life cannot be all pain, there will also be pleasure. These are dualities, Dandwa in the Gita's language. If you have one, you get the other. You can't expect only one to be with you. Heat and cold, for example, always go with together. And so Vedanta teaches all to take life as it is. This is the word important, no? Vedanta teaches all to take life as it is. Life is a combination of pleasure and pain. Whether one is more or the other is more is just a theoretical question. We are passing through life which involves both pleasure and pain. Don't get stuck up in either of them. That is the Vedantic teaching. Squeeze both of them and get knowledge out of them. Experience alone can give you the knowledge. Without the experience of pain, you can't understand the world and sympathize with humanity. Unless you have starved a little, you can't understand people who are half starving. You can't have sympathy, you can't have understanding. So utilize occasions of pain and pleasure to achieve knowledge and compassion. The spiritual expansion of human personality. That is why he said Mahatma. Mahatmas are those whose self is more than what is contained in the body. It has expanded and become one with all. Such a person is called Mahatma. The person also has achieved that infinite expansion of self-awareness. He or she has achieved supreme perfection in this very life. That is the language of the 15th verse. Before we close, one more portion, very in Prayana Kaleja. In the 8 to 10, 9 and 10, he elaborately discusses about Prayana Kaleja Manasa Achalena. In that, he says, at the time of Prayana or death, Bhakriya Yukdo Yoga Balena Chaiva, Manasa Achalena, also with the strength of yoga, which also supports a steady mind, concentrating all the bioenergies that are inside between the eyebrows, what happens to him? One realizes the supremely divine person. So there are three behind the body-mind complex, behind the muscle, behind the nervous system, behind the psyche, is that infinite Atman, ever pure, ever free. That is our nature. This has been expressed again and again in Gita and Upanishad and in Shankaracharya's writing also. Spirituality, and this is very important, spirituality is what essentially means to you, your own true nature, your real I. That is where this teaching becomes absolutely relevant. Nobody is beyond spirituality. Everybody is spiritual. There is no divide between spiritual and worldly, You may not be religious, but you must be spiritual. That is the nature of this growth and development. This genetically centered ego or self of mine is transformed into a larger self, which feels one with you and one with all. That is spiritual growth, the beginning of spiritual life. That is how a person toward the end of his or her life will be able to experience all these beautiful truths which are mentioned here. Work, joy, comfort, everything remains, but all in the context of these wonderful truths. Take away the Atman from the world becomes zero. Tad Atmanam Vimuktaha, Jagat Asat. So I shall not separate the Atman from the world. That is called spirituality, the one behind the many in every action, every endeavor, every relationship. I stress this awareness of the Atman that makes me capable of establishing happy relationship with other people, because it is the same Atman in every being. Therefore, this is called spirituality. There is nothing magical or mystical about it. It's a living experience for every human being. Anubhava Swarupa. You can experience it in day-to-day activities. The housewife who remains busy the whole day in the house can be deeply spiritual with the awareness of the divine within. We are not thinking of some God sitting in the sky far away. So this is what Sri Krishna mentions here. We build up our life in this way, then finally death comes. The mind becomes easily fixed on that infinite reality, Brahman, and we realize our oneness with it. When the body is cast away, that is the language. We are not the body. We have a body. The second chapter already told us that. When the cloth becomes old and torn, we throw it away, put on the new cloth. That is the nature of the human body with respect to our own true self. And so in the 8th chapter, we are dealing with these subjects. Later on will come cosmology, the infinite age of universe, which will echo in modern cosmology. So he says Atma Balam, Yoga Balam, Bhaktya Yukto Yoga Balena Jeva. So he explains about 3 balams, Bahu Balam, Buddhi Balam, Yoga Balam. If from our childhood we can develop daily all these three strengths together, it will be an ideal growth. We do need physical exercise, nourishing food, by which you develop Bahubalam. Strong, steady human beings we become, what Vivekananda called muscles of iron and nerves of steel. We need young people like that in India. We have weakened our body, so we need today Bahubalam. Along with it must come Buddhibalam. Go to school, get education, study, think for yourself, strengthen your intellect, your reason, your mind, and along with these, try to realize a bit of the spiritual nature within you. Manifest that strength also, little by little, from childhood towards, try to develop the spiritual side. That is what Sri Krishna meant here when he said, Yoga Balena Jaiva. A total education will help a human being to develop all the three dimensions of strength. And that last dimension, Yoga Balam or Atma Balam, that is the real strength. It alone can make you withstand the pressures of human life. And those pressures are plenty in today's society, breaking our nervous system, our psychic system, resulting in high tension, high stress. All that can be conquered only by a bit of that Yoga Balam or Atma Balam. And high character can come only from Atma Balam, not through Buddhi Balam. Buddhi Balam is extremely susceptible to corruption. But with a little Atma Balam, you can overcome all these weaknesses, develop an incorruptible character. So children must develop all the three strengths: Bahubalam, Buddhi Balam, Yoga Balam. The lower the type of energy, the more quantity you need. The higher the energy, the less the quantity you need. You don't need spiritual energy in much quantity. It is the quality which we value. Therefore, when we develop a little spirituality, we are able to stand and face the world. We become truly free. Nobody can frighten us. Nobody can enslave us anymore. That is spiritual freedom. A child must experience that spiritual freedom and respect the same freedom in others as well. That is the importance of the third strength, Yoga Balam. Interhuman cooperation, happy relation with each other, happy family life, all these can come only with a little bit of that Yoga Balam. Not by brain power. The brainy people are the worst people today. All the evil and weakness of the society come from the brainy people. All corruption, most social conflicts come from brainy people. From that alone, we can realize that we have to go deeper than Buddhi to get a new source of strength which can stabilize our external life. That is the theoretical or practical significance of Yoga Balam or Atma Balam. These are all explained beautifully in this 8th chapter. So today Papa gives us a wonderful clue.
Gandhiji is a true example of Atma Balam, Swami. You said it. Gandhiji.
Gandhiji, yes, correct, very much.
Yes, Atma Balam.
Atma Balam. Have we ever heard Gandhiji falling sick? Think of. So there he was able to maintain this Bahubalam, Buddhibalam, Yoga Balam. He was also highly rational. Somebody was one Deshmukhji was kind enough to compile from Gandhiji's various wisdom teachings connected with God, and that book is called Pathway to God. Just like Papa, he talks about the Nirguna Nirakara Tattvam first, but at the same time, give equal importance for devotion. So and he was able to maintain that throughout. That is why we said, on 30th January, when he was shot, it was, Papa had written in the memoir that it was his Swechamaranam, it was something which he wanted. Because he knew his mission is over through this body. Partition was something which not acceptable to him. So he knew his mission is over. So on 27th or 28th January, he declared, if somebody were to shoot at me, and when I leave the body, if I don't remember I don't utter God's name, then you should go to the rooftop and declare that I am not what you all expected me to be. And on the third day, he was shot and he said, Hey Ram. So he wanted to. There should be an instrumental cause. So God through Gopal, what is Godse? It was an instrumental cause. He wanted to leave the body. But till he left the body, he was having this balance of Buddhibalam, Bahubalam, Buddhibalam and Atmabalam. He was free from all, yet in the midst of all. The Pathway to God was a wonderful book, a small book. Just like, probably Papa was enthused by many of Gandhiji's teachings. We don't know now, but about 10 or 15 years back when we were clearing some old books, we found the Young India and Ethical Young India, Harijan, all those magazines in 1920s, 22, 23. That was there, but we don't know now where it is. But Gandhiji was a regular reader. And he himself has said, when he met Gandhiji at a distance, that was the first spiritual touch. And in Quest of God, he brings twice the word Gandhiji. First in the initial article, where he introduces Ram. He said they are the personifications of truth. So why we mention all these, there is a lot of similarity between what is explained by Gandhiji and what is explained by Papa. All these things are coming there. Gandhiji also believed in the same thing, and he was able to accept the creation as the Saguna Sagar. Anyway, let us all try to absorb as much as we can. And today's is dukkhalayam ashashvatam. These two words. We are not running away from the word. We are not belittling the importance of the word. We are not casting aspersions on this word, but we are trying to understand the nature of the world. Only by understanding the nature of the world, we will be free from grumblings and complaints. This is the message Papa gives us. Hari Om. Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Om. Shri Ram